Scotty.
I'm Motti.
You did pause there.
I know, it's like how, I don't know why. Well, we've not got anything written down, so I didn't know my line.
All right. It's only the first time we've done this.
This is something new.
It is something new.
It's not often me and you do something new, is it? In live or, on camera. But we've decided, I say we, you came up with the idea, I give you credit where it's due, to do a podcast. We've been threatening to do this, haven't we, for about 5 years, because we started Scotty and Motti in lockdown. And we sort of just ended up talking about United, didn't we?
It's an easy thing to get into.
Where it wasn't our intention when we started it. And if you look at the earlier episodes, we were covering all sorts of topics. I think the first episode was on Purple Aki.
Probably one of our most successful.
It was, wasn't it? That gave us a false
broke
dawn. Did it have like 4,000 views or something? The first one, I thought we've cracked it here, and then the next one was like 200. You're like, oh dear. But we ended up speaking about United, because obviously we're big United fans. And then we've always spoke about the idea of doing something about sobriety. And we've done, obviously, podcasts about mental health and sobriety in the past, but we thought we'd do one that was just about that.
Yep.
And you came up with the idea, Soberfellas.
Yeah, because I think I came with it last summer, and that was the last time I had a real major blowout. I've been sober at time of recording just over 3 months. I know you've done 11 years now, is it?
It's 10 and a half. I think it'll be 11 well, a bit over 10 and a half, 11 in June.
Yeah, but so my sort of journey has always been like some life event, and I'm like, right, I'm going to get levered again. But I've always wanted to just try and stay sober.
Yeah.
But I thought in some form of like Trojan horse way that if I can get you to do a podcast about sobriety, that will be the enthusiasm that I need, because you can embarrass me live on YouTube and say, look, you got drunk again at the weekend, we can't do Soberfellas.
You know full well, right? I mean, any opportunity to try and embarrass you, I'm there.
Yes.
You know that better than anyone. But I'm not going to start having digs at you for, falling off the wagon or for drinking or for struggling with sobriety, because for starters, I can. Just because I'm nearly 11 or 10 and a half years, let's call it what it is, 10 and a half years sober now, doesn't mean I just decided one day to stop drinking and that was it. You know how many times I attempted through all different methods and means, whether that's rehab, detox, counselling, whatever, and it just didn't stick. It's only this time around that it has. And also, listen, me and you've known each other for years, we do love to take the piss out of each other, but I'm not that horrible. No.
At least not on camera.
Not on camera. Got a brand here, Scotty.
Yeah.
But like, there's some things where I might have a bit of a dig at you, what you like, done it again, but I wouldn't be like, can't believe you've not stayed sober, because it can be a struggle. And I don't want to sort of give anyone the misconception that, I came in, just did 10 and a half years. I didn't, like I said earlier, it can be difficult, but I do think that there is help, there is ways of chatting about it, and that's what this podcast should be about, just talking about the trials and tribulations of drinking, and not necessarily even just staying sober. You don't have to be sober or be trying to stay sober to watch this podcast or listen to it. You might be someone that likes to drink, you might be someone that's had a few ups and downs with drink, you might know someone that's had a few ups and downs with drink. I just think that sobriety and drinking and drug use and all the rest of it is something we've got experience around, and it's something that's very prevalent for everyone in society. It's
certainly something we've got a lot of life experience at, and in terms of like we want to talk about more, and the more that we've done Scotty and Motti over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, people have got in touch regarding their own sort of struggles and stuff. And we had someone message me a few weeks ago called Kyle, who said he'd been 2 years sober after watching one of our episodes on sobriety. But I felt guilty because he's like, he'd watched one of our stuff, and I'm like, well, I had a slip not long ago, and I felt like, but he'd done 2 years, and like, more power to you. But yeah, I've always wanted to try and stay sober, and we'll talk about this as we go on through the podcast. But there's always some sort of like hurdle in the way, and it's how do I not do that and just stay sober? Because once I sort of fall off the wagon, it's like, yeah, man, I'm just going to backflip into the pub. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I'll just stay in there.
When you say hurdle, what are the hurdles that you mentioned? Give me an example.
Okay, hurdles would be like, life events usually, like my granddad passing in October. I tried so hard not to drink. Like afterwards, my family all got together and were drinking. I thought, right, I had to remove myself while everyone was collectively mourning but drinking in his passing, and I was like, right, I'll get absolutely levered here, and I'll be on it for a bit. So I had to move myself away. But then I went out at the weekend, and then I ended up getting drunk anyway.
Right,
do you know what I mean? It's like, I think it's more sort of a mental sort of, I don't know if it's mental health thing, but I just know myself that I function so much better in terms of like my day to day when I stop drinking. Because the longest I've done is a year.
That's amazing.
And I felt so good after doing it.
I remember.
Yeah.
You chatting to me about it.
And then it's like, and that was a conscious decision, because I was like, I can't function like as a as an adult.
So when you do this, Scotty, then, are you just doing it without any help? When I say help, is it there's various ways and means you can get help around sobriety, whether that's some of the ones I mentioned earlier or others. Are you doing it just, I'm going to stop drinking and that's it?
I go like cold turkey, I guess. And I've been to, we can talk about like AA and roots and stuff. I've been to a couple of AAs in the past. Went to one when I was in university in Nottingham because I was just absolutely hammering it. But then you think, I'm at university, everyone's getting hammered. It's not a problem.
I've done that. I went to NA when I was at uni. And it was a bit strange because you're going from that environment straight into a meeting. But I was a mature student anyway. And at the time, one of the reasons I'd gone to uni is because I got sober. I'd gone to a detox, gone to a rehab, gone back to college, finally passed college at the 4th time of trying because I was sober, started uni, and then it was second year uni, started drinking again. Yeah,
but that's what you go from like Freshers Week to a church hall full of fuck-ups, that's what it was like. But then for me, it made me sort of go like, well, I'm not as bad as this guy who stood up and said, oh, I've lost all my work and my family and stuff like that, and I've got no money. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm not as bad as him. And I was like, right,
straight, done that, innit?
Next weekend I was back at the pub.
Yeah.
But in terms of like trying to stay sober, I have to isolate myself massively from groups of friends that I know, not through any fault of their own, that's just who they are. But if I'm with them, then the bar's open and whatnot, and then it's like talking in the kitchen at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to sort of remove myself from
tuna fishing.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Remove myself from their place. But then something will happen, and like, I really need a drink. A couple of weeks ago, I was at home and I was like, do you still get this? Even though you're 10 and a half years in, like I'll get like a crawling sort of, it's like a crawling sensation. Could do with getting off my face tonight, just to sort of level it.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Do you remember it though? That sort of like that.
I used to call that a Tuesday.
Yeah, but I like invisible urge. But I could feel it creeping up during the week, and I was thinking, I'll just get a nice little leveler.
Nah, bro. I had that so many times, even when I was in sobriety. But this time round, I haven't. Yeah. I'm very, very fortunate. But I've not had that feeling, and that's why I feel quite safe and secure in certain environments.
Yeah,
I mentioned this to you a few times where we went away to do a live show with the Stretford Paddock lads, and we did it in Dublin. We all took our other halves, and everyone was drinking. We're in a pub, and your mate Wes Brown was with us, and everyone's buying him drinks, and everyone's drinks are just everywhere, and people buying us drinks, and obviously not a lot of people knew I didn't drink, so they weren't buying me drinks necessarily, but there was loads of drinks around. And I was fine. I didn't feel like, I need one. Do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't bother me. We've been to Thailand. Again, we've had it. Back in the day, can you imagine me or you in Thailand? We'd have been, I'd still be there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I got missing, 100%, or banged up, yeah. Was fine. Wasn't on me at all. I wouldn't have gone if I hadn't have felt that, because I couldn't risk it. And again, other environments I've been in, whether it's been on tour, whether it's just been out with my mates, it's not come on me. It hasn't. It's just, I've not had that urge or that feeling, and I get where you're coming from, because it used to happen. And the trouble I had was any time I had that slight inkling, I could do with a line or whatever, I'd end up doing it.
Yeah.
No matter what, I knew as soon as I had that thought, I was done. Yeah, there was no way I was not going to use or not gonna get out my face. It would always end up with me on the phone with dealer and me getting levered and twisted. There was no way I wasn't gonna, but I've not had that. Now I like to think that, let's say for example, worst case scenario, I had that thought, I'd be able to not act upon it. But I haven't had it since I got sober this time around.
Yeah, it was just like, so I read something a couple of weeks ago, and they say like about 3 months into your sobriety, you sort of, I don't know, emotional balance starts leveling out, and all your problems sort of come to the forefront. So you get a little bit more clarity.
Yeah.
And then with that, I'm like, oh fuck, I better get drinking. You know what it is? Hide them.
Yeah. Well, do you know what it is with that? It depends on the situation, because for a lot of people, and I saw this when I was in rehab in particular, some people get to rehab and we talk about rock bottoms in sobriety and recovery and addiction. They get to rehab, and I was in a similar situation. Got nothing, right? You don't own anything. You might have a bin bag with a few items in it. You've lost contact with all your family. You might have a charge sheet hanging over. You might be on probation or whatever. You've literally got nothing. So you go in there, and at first it's just like, you might have done a detox, whatever. Your health's coming back. You put on a bit of weight. You're eating meals. You just get into that bit, and you're like, okay, this is all right. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Actually, you're taking a shower every day. You're doing the things that people take for granted that maybe you weren't doing when you were in active using or drinking or whatever. So the first couple of months, there can be, not all the time, but there can be almost that sense of contentment and euphoria almost, because it's like, I'm getting myself back together. You know, I can eat food, I can clean myself, I'm chatting to people, I'm, you know what I mean? You might be chatting to the other opposite sex or people you find attractive or whatever. You might be doing something like that you've not done for a while. And it's like, oh, this is all great. But then there's a bit of reality that'll kick in, and you might be thinking, like, in a few months in, like, okay, now everything's great, but I haven't got anywhere to live long term. I don't own anything. I ain't got a job. I haven't spoken to my family in years. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm still on probation. That sort of reality can kick into some people, where that's why a few months in it can become difficult, because then you've got to face these life issues you have to deal with, because you've done with the initial part of getting clean, but now it's like, all right, I've got clean or sober, what am I going to do now? And that can sometimes hit people hard. I've seen that.
And that's
times.
a trigger, isn't it? That some people can start to relapse. They always say, don't they, that getting clean is the easy part. It's staying clean that's the hard part.
100%. I mean,
I think it brings home as well a lot of the time as to what you're actually. I mean, people drink for different reasons, and more power to you who can do it for like a social reason. But a lot of people, like, you know, trying to drink from problems or whatever, or escapism and stuff like that. And a lot of it comes to the forefront what you were trying to suppress, I think, through drugs and drink. Yeah,
they say, don't they, it's like, look at the reasons behind you drinking.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to get, you know, sober. A lot of the time it's, you know, why were you drinking? What was it? And I can relate to that. I had a lot of, you know, issues going on. I didn't feel great about myself, and drinking and using used to alleviate that.
Yeah.
And maybe that is one of the reasons why. There's several reasons. I don't think there's one reason. Big reason for me is having kids and a missus that, you know, sort of 100% devoted to my family now, and it's like, I don't want to lose all that. But there's other reasons as well, and a lot of it is you drinking and using because you feel like you don't belong, or you feel unwanted, or you're just depressed, or, you know, you just that sense of anxiety. Sometimes there can be all that sort of things, and sometimes you don't even realise it at the time until you come out of it, and you go, actually, looking back, that was a big reason. That was something, you know, that for me,
start taking stock.
Taking stock is a great way to put it. Yeah. So it was again, that can be quite difficult when you first get clean and you address all those things.
Yeah.
It can be hard, man. It can, but it's doable. I always think that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been away like with the lads, and I think of this one I did a year sober. Went to Berlin for a weekend. Didn't drink once.
Did you not?
No, I smoked like a bastard, like in the bars in Germany.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not. You don't drink non-alcoholic beers, but I'm not too bad with them. And I thought I was getting like this sort of placebo effect off Erdinger, because everybody else was absolutely hammered.
Yeah.
And then
that can happen. You know, you can think that can happen. Like.
But it got to 1 o'clock in the morning. I thought, I've heard these stories 7 times now. I've had enough of this now. Like, I said, I backdoored it, and I went, nah, stay, we'll have shots. I said, I'm not drunk, you fucking dickheads. And then left them. And the following morning, I'm up fresh as a daisy at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what we doing there all day, dying in bed? I went walking on the Picasso Museum on my Jack Jones, which I was like, I said proud of myself. I was like, chuffy badge on me.
You deserve a chuffy badge for that. But it is mad though. But that, you know what, I can go out with my friends who drink. I don't go out that often. You know, go to football or whatever. I might go to the match or whatever, and be around the people that drink. And I don't mind it at all. And the friends I've got, I get on with when they've had a beer. They're all great, and it's fine. But the one thing that can do me in is when you spend. This is why sometimes I don't like doing the aways, because on the aways you're there for like 10 hours or whatever. Is hearing those same stories over and over again, and you're just like, you told me this.
They just become longer as well.
Yeah, and more elaborate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It goes
you had a pink coat on early.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, the story about having that fight with 2 lads becomes a fight with 5 lads. You know what I mean? By the end of it, you're like, I heard this an hour ago, you forget. So yeah, that can be a bit testing. But I think with the environment and where you are and what you put yourself in, one thing I always say with especially people with early sobriety is just don't test yourself too soon. If you touch and go and you're trying to, if you're not trying, fine. But if you are trying not to drink, then don't put yourself in them situations you might find difficult, because it's not. You don't have to test yourself. No, you don't have to. It's not like, I need to see if I'm going to be able to get through this. You know, eventually you want to be able to go out and not, be around people that are drinking. Otherwise, you might make life a bit more.
It doesn't need to be like an assault course where you have to start. You don't have to put obstacles unnecessarily in front of you. But the flip side of that, though, Jay, is how isolating it can be when your circle all drinks and stuff like that. Like it was my. It was my daughter's birthday the other week, and they had a surprise party, and then my mum and my sister and my sister-in-law, and they had a glass of wine and stuff like that, and they were all drinking, and I'm like, all right, and they're the only adults, and then the kids were so obviously not drinking, and then I was playing with the kids, which is nice. I don't mind doing it for 4 or 5 hours when they're all getting drunk, and it's sort of like don't feel part of it. You know what I mean? You always feel like there's a little bit of a barrier.
Yeah, I get that. And that is something.
Not that you should drink at kids' parties, by the way.
Not until at least 15. But I get that, and I've been in environments where you can feel a bit isolated, like you said, because if everyone's having a beer and you're the only one that's not, it can be a little bit. But then again, it's one of those where I suppose if you can take yourself out of the situation, you do. But if you can't, if there is a scenario, for want of a better word, where you're in an environment where everyone is drinking and you're not, and you're sort of almost stuck there, then maybe that's when you do need to reach out to someone and just have a quick chat or whatever.
So that's when support networks.
Yeah, like you can pick up the phone and just have a bell, give someone a bell, sorry, and say, look, you know, I'm at a party and everyone's having a beer and, you know, I'm stuck here. I'm not getting picked up for another hour and it's on me. You know, I've had those ones. It doesn't necessarily, you know, obviously in 12-step you have a sponsor. I'm not in 12-step anymore. I don't do that anymore. I'm not knocking it. It's just not what I do. But you can always reach out to someone who, you know, if you could ring me or whoever and just have a quick chat. You might just have a quick chat for 10 minutes to take your mind off it or whatever, and then it's like, right, okay, I'm good to go for another.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Sometimes I've just had that weakness. I feel like I'll just have one. Because it crossed my mind. I thought I'll have a glass of wine, and then I was like thinking to myself, no, but you won't have a glass of wine.
Have we ever done that?
I've never had a glass of wine. I've never had one bottle of wine. If I'm having wine was always a big thing. But, you know, in the evening socials, like drinking at home or whatever.
Wine you send me,
yeah. So I know fine well my own sort of flaws. If I have one drink, then I'm having all the drink. And I know that, and that experience has taught me that. But then I also I was speaking to my dad about this the other week, and I was saying every mistake I've ever made in my life came through drink. Or not being sober. Every mistake. I had the biggest mistakes in my life.
Yeah, do you know what, I can relate to that. I think the deepest shit I've got myself in has been because I've been on something.
Yeah.
That's true. And yet, it doesn't put you off, does it?
No, not at all. In fact, it makes you want to do it a bit more. I think what happens is when you're younger is that you sort of see the carnage that you cause from the night before. It's not that difficult. I mean, we can all get in states, but you know, you had your argument with your mate or whatever, you had a bit of punch up. All right, well, we can sort that drama out. But I think the older you get, and like the carnage comes a little bit more. Yeah, like Hollywood fucking disaster movie. And it's like I can't be asked.
I've not just had a row with my mate. You know what I mean? I've fallen out with my missus, and the kids don't want to talk to me. Yeah. That's a bit more deep or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or I went through all that. I went through getting myself in serious trouble at one point. You know, locked up and all that. But it still didn't put me off. It still wasn't enough. Yeah. It wasn't until recently, well, I say recently, obviously 10 years ago, when it was like, that was the point where it got to enough. But you're right, and also, you might, as you get older, and what I found is, when I've got sober, I've accumulated more things, you've got more to lose.
Risk factors.
Yeah, like, when I was 23, 24, I didn't have any children, I didn't have a career. Whereas now I've got those things and you don't want to lose them, and that can make it worse if you do relapse. Because then it's like,
it's a bigger gamble, isn't it?
I've thrown all that away, or not necessarily forever, but you can feel like you have thrown it away forever. And that can make it amplify what you're going through. I wanted to ask you a little bit about drinking drugs, because this is Soberfellas. We're talking about, you know, when people see sober, they probably just associate with drinking, but we're talking about drugs as well.
Like drunk,
And, you know, I often say when I get a clean time birthday, it's, you know, I'm clean and sober. Drugs was always massive for me from day one. Where, you know, going back to 13, 14, smoking weed, taking whiz, then ease, then sniff, and other things. Was it big for you?
The use of drugs was big for me, yeah, but not in the sense that, but it always came after alcohol. Like I think I mentioned this in my book, Mancunian's available at all good books.
Great book, that. But some great chapters. Just skim through so you see the name J. Marty, then read that bit. One joke.
But the bit where it says like drugs are always like alcohol's like the aperitif for drugs. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd have a bottle of White Lightning and then I'd have a spliff.
I'm so glad you said White Lightning. We're so on the same page.
Yeah.
Like,
Diamond White.
Let's not glamorise it. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bottle of White Lightning.
Prosecco in the park.
Yeah, it was like, come on, we were White Lightning in it on
White
the
Lightning and Red Leb or whatever, you know, like sticky black. Remember
mate, yeah, what was it we used to smell? There was gold. There was the gold one, wasn't there?
Yeah.
It was Sputnik.
Yeah. That was a big one. That was like, what did they call it? Rock holes or... Then you get burning your hole.
Oh, yeah, bomb holes.
Rock burns.
We used to call it bomb holes. I used to have so many tops that I'd really fucking gross, that, innit? Honestly, yeah.
That was it. My first, the first time I ever smoked weed was because I was drunk. First time I had a pill, I was drunk. First time, in fact, I think that maybe LSD is the only drug, or magic mushrooms is the only drug that I've taken that I've not had alcohol with.
Really?
I mean, and that's still to this day. I've always cocaine, ecstasy,
I don't
anything.
think I don't think I've ever done. Maybe there was a time when I smoked weed and I didn't drink.
Yeah.
But I've always had a drink. Even when I was bang on the sniff, I'd have a drink.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even want sniff without a drink.
No, because the drinks are like the precursor to having to get in the bag.
Yeah, it was, there was no way I was.
And then it becomes like a seesaw, because then you get too much sniff, and then you're like, oh, I need some drink to sort of balance that out. And
Honestly.
it's like, then it's Tuesday, and you're like, I don't know where I am. What am I doing in Stoke? What time?
Well, yeah, well, I've got no money. And I'm fucking 200 miles away from where I live.
I've lost a shoe.
Yeah, and I don't know who any of these people are that I'm with. What is going on?
But I still love them times, though.
Great times.
Do you know what I mean? No, like I would never want to relive anything that happened. I'm more like survivor stories, but they scare the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, when Steve tells me his stories, I'm like, this sounds horrendous.
Even when we lived in Malio, like, can you imagine having to do a day of that now?
No, I couldn't.
Like, by the time I was like, this is amazing, but I look back and thinking, how the fuck did I live?
And it was constant.
Have I not got hepatitis and lost a liver, you know?
I mean, and also, even when we were in Malio, and I'm not just saying that, I say this to Mrs. and she's like, yeah, you're full of shit. But even then, Malio, everyone was shagging. Everyone was at it, especially when you worked out there. Even then, all I was asked about was getting levered.
Yeah.
All I was on was just getting twisted. As soon as I woke up, I used to start drinking. You remember we used to have those fish bowls and all that?
Yeah, fish bowls and red vodka.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, you could do all the shagging, but that brought more headaches than the drink sometimes.
Nah, I don't know. Honestly, I was just constantly steaming.
Yeah, I know.
Like, yeah, like, changing jobs because getting sacked because I was too drunk, which is an achievement. But yeah, it was just non-stop. And then that sort of spilled over again when you come back home. It like carried on a bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Carried on a bit, carried on for about a decade. But yeah, it's always been like that for me, just getting absolutely twisted on whatever was available, to be honest with you, even though it's evolved.
Did you ever feel like you were sort of pinpoint a reason behind it? Do you know, I read a lot of Gabor Mate. Have you ever heard of his work?
I haven't.
It came to fame last couple of years, which is the Ginger Prince Harry. I think him and Meghan brought his profile into the larger world. But he's great. He talks about addiction being a reaction to trauma and to some sort of mental health thing from young. So right. I'm wondering if you ever sort of pinpointed stuff.
Yeah, I think there was.
Because I've got
please do.
And the reason I asked it is because, and we'll get deeper into this as the show goes on. It's just that I look at my brother and sister or my mum and dad, and they can fully function if they're drunk. My sister can get levered, and they'll be at work for work the next day, and my dad can do it, and my brother does it. I get drunk, and it's just, everything's a write-off. And I don't know if it's my own sort of like a self-destruct button within there, and it's like. That's the only thing I can put it down to is childhood trauma that they didn't experience. Is when I get pissed, I fucking I you know what I mean?
It's a good point. That,
So I was wondering.
I had a little bit of that in the sense of, I think I felt not abandoned, but because my biological dad went around.
Yeah, I thought
around because obviously I'm mixed race and my family was white, and because my mum married Paul, my dad, but then my biological dad wasn't around, and that you pick up on that. And you learn, obviously, what he's not been around at all in your life. So there is a sense of, I don't know if abandonment's the right word, feeling like less than, maybe a little bit there that went unaddressed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Feelings of all sorts, from anger to sort of frustration to guilt even. It's weird. So I think that goes unaddressed, and then that leads to getting twisted, basically, as a coping mechanism almost. And then that just spiraled, and I think that was a big issue for me that went just unchecked for so many years that I didn't even think about it. I think the first time I really spoke about it properly and looked into it was my first stint. Not first, it was like my only stint in rehab. When there was a little bit of it in my counselling, but was in the counselling first, but that I sort of paid that lip service. It wasn't proper counselling because I wasn't fully involved in it and fully engaged with it. But then when I went to rehab, when you're doing group and one-to-ones, it all comes out, and then that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I've had that when I've spoken to sort of counsellors and done CBT therapy, and they've sort of said that what you are doing, you are running from your younger self and stuff that happened when you were a kid and stuff like that. And it's like when you start getting drunk and drugs are available, it's like an escape from it. And as time goes on, all you are doing is burying that in the sand, and you think it's gone, but what it really is that the sand becomes the foundation of what you're trying to live on. Right. You can't build shit on sand.
No, that's true.
I mean, the Egyptians did it, or aliens. But do you know what I mean? As a metaphor, you can't really build.
That's another podcast topic we'll get into. Was it the Egyptians or the aliens?
I don't know. It's an interesting one.
But you're right. You can't. You need to sort your foundations out, and often that we don't. And also, sometimes that environment we're in, the era we grew up in. Now, I think we're fortunate that we can do this at a time when addiction, sobriety, mental health is all being spoken about.
I wouldn't do this 20 years ago.
No.
Like you were the first. We actually recorded this once before, but somebody forgot to turn the mics on. Who was it?
And if we find out who that was, I'm telling you now, they will be receiving a strongly worded tweet.
They will do, indeed. But they're not on Twitter anymore, or active on Twitter. Anyway, as we were talking about on the last one, fuck, I've lost my train of thought. Where were we?
You're so busy reminding everyone or letting everyone know that it was me that fucked it up, that you forgot what you were going to say. We were talking about how we couldn't have done this 20 years ago. We couldn't have done this podcast 20 years ago. Oh, that was it, yes.
Because you're the first person that I know who got sober. You really were, like, I mean, in many ways, Jay, you've always been a bit of a fantasy figure, like, but you're a bit of a unicorn in my circle. Because when I met you in London that time, and I got absolutely annihilated, I went to Dirty Martina, and I was literally snorting Martina.
Because it was funny, because we met, we're not seeing each other for a little while.
That was the first time after Malio, the first time we met.
Was it? Yeah. So it was great catching up. We went and watched the match, didn't we, in a pub in London, Bolton. Beat United, fucking Nicholas and Elka. And we were chatting, it was great, and you were like full of admiration that I wasn't drinking anymore, and like you were a bit surprised. And I saw the best of you that day in terms of your drinking, because you were fine with me. Yeah. I could see you getting more and more drunk, but you were full of beans and funny, and we were having a laugh, and we were catching up, and it was all great. And then I think we went to Covent Garden, was it?
I went to Dirty Martina.
Yeah, she went to his family do one it, or you
do it for a friend's birthday party, and then the following day I was in like a caravan in Essex, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing in my life?
You messaged me the next day, and the wheels had come off.
The wheels had come off.
You went, Jay, I need to get on your bus.
It's true, but I mean,
I fell out with her. No one's talking to me. I've had a nightmare. I was like, all right, okay.
Since that day when you sort of saw the sea, because I remember getting I might have to get like 2 buses almost, but I was in Nottingham at the time, and it really stuck with me. I was like, how has he got sober? Why is it not how has he got sober, but why has he got sober? Because why is that a thing? It was such an alien concept. I can't tell you. This is why it's so much more admiration for you, because you sort of broke the mold.
Well, that got passed on to me though, because I got passed on to me in a detox, believe it or not, because I literally only got sober the first time because I went to court again, and this was like, long story short, I ended up going to jail once. I come out, and then you do that whole thing, I ain't going back there. 3 years later, I'm back in court, and the judge remands me. All right, something for, I'm going back to jail. Anyway, next thing I know, I get told I'm going back up to the court because the judge has been told that I'm going into a detox. So I thought it was nonsense, because I wasn't. But I'd had a key worker at this hostel I'd been staying at, and she told the judge that I was going into a detox because she'd found out that I'd been remanded. So he'd sort of said, right, you've got a second chance here. So I was like, it wasn't true. She'd lied basically to do me a favour. So I went to detox as almost like the thing where it was either jail or detox. Went to detox, and in detox, someone came in who was in NA, a guy called Chris, and he gave us, a talk, a share, and I think he was 7 years sober or whatever, and he wasn't a counsellor, he was just a normal bloke, been in trouble, he was an Arsenal fan, sound apart from the Arsenal fan bit, and he said, I remember I was quizzing him after, he said, I've not used for 7 years, so I was like, what do you do, just smoke weed? He's like, no. So what do you do, just bit of beer and that now and again. He's like, no, I don't do anything. So what? We'll just sniff now. The odd line. No, just ease when you go out. No, I don't do anything ever. Yeah. And I was like, what? Really? And he's like, yeah. What, for 7 years? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, how the fuck do you do that? And he's like, a day at a time. And I was like, right, okay. So that was the first time I spoke to someone who wasn't, Muslim or whatever, or didn't drink for a reason. Yeah, like I've got lots of friends who don't drink, but it's for other reasons. First time I spoke to someone who seemed on the level, it seemed like me and you. It wasn't wasn't a preaching.
Yeah,
and had used and drank and done all sorts like we did. He'd been, I can't remember what his drug of choice was. I think he might have been an heroin addict at one point. I think that was his at one point, but I can't remember. Forgive me, I'm getting it wrong. But anyway, and he got clean and stayed clean. And that was, to me, like your moment with me, it was like, what? Really? Nothing? And I couldn't get my head around that. But then when I went to rehab, you meet more people like that. Because when I went to rehab, the counsellors in the rehab were all users. Not ex, because you're never an ex-addict, but we're all addicts.
Which I think is important for that as well, because otherwise you're like, well, you've got no experience of what I'm going through. How could you, there's no common ground there. But that's why, that's when I was like, I remember coming back on the National Express and I was like, why has he done it? How has he done it? Like, who's taught him? And that's what. And then I tried it, and I thought, right, because I was at university, so I was away from my parents and stuff, who like would usually drink at most social occasions. I thought, right, well, I'll try and sort of move myself off. And that's when I went to AA in Nottingham, and I thought, well, I'm not as bad as this guy here, so I'll be all right. I'll carry on. But then, like, so I could do. Oh, I've done 3 months. I'll have a drink. And then like I'll do, and then next time it's like I'll do 6 months. I'll have a drink, and then something like that. And then, so I've got it in me to do it for longevity. But you used to, not in the nicest possible way, you used to piss me off, because you used to always say, when we were talking about this sort of stuff on podcasts, Scotty's always great because he can stop drinking and start drinking again. And I'm like, no, you dick. I'm like, I don't want to start drinking. I fall off the wagon. It's not I don't want.
I had it the back to front. I used to think like, oh, you're all right. Like, you'll have a few months off, and then you'll go back and have a week on it, and then you'll stop again.
Would you say that? So he's all right. He's in and out of prison.
Yeah, he's so clever. This guy's got it going on. He'll do like 6 months here and there, maybe a couple of years, and he'll get out. He'll be all right for a few weeks. I was like, but I used to look at it as like, okay, he can dip his toe in and out.
It's not that. It's not. I don't want to do. I say it now live on the podcast. I don't want to do anything.
And I know that because we went through a stage of seeing a lot more of each other when we sort of worked together for a bit. And I remember the amount of times when you'd say to me like, I need to quit. I need to quit. I need to stop. It would always be up and down. It's sort of penny dropping me like, look, this isn't someone who's choosing to live this way. It's, I can see the frustrations you're having with yourself. You just beat yourself up about it and message me, and I'd be like, I always say that to everyone. I said, like, acknowledge what you've done if you've relapsed and you didn't want to. I'm not saying just ignore it completely, but don't beat yourself up about it, man. Don't be like, because you can get into that, and I think that sometimes that can be counterproductive when people, I'm such a loser.
And then it's more ammunition. It's like, oh, I might as well just carry on.
Yeah, I'm not into that, and I think you've got to give yourself credit, because look, I always, put to my own journey, I tried so many times to get clean and stay clean. And it just didn't stick for ages. So and I wouldn't anyway, but I'm certainly not going to judge someone who has been up and down with it, because I've been there myself. So many times I was like, that's it, and it wasn't. And then some cases, it ended up worse. You know what I mean? Like, I'm literally the only drug I've not taken is spice. And that's only because it came out after I'd stopped.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or at least, I only found out about after I'd stopped. But every time I thought this, I'd end up on worse or harder drugs and in more shit. So I'm certainly not going to judge anyone who's up and down, and hopefully, this podcast this podcast won't be about that.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted. I likened it on the version that was silent, that you're Obi-Wan Kenobi and I'm Luke Skywalker. Or you're like, what's De Niro's character in Goodfellas?
Jimmy Conway.
You're Jimmy Conway, and I'm Henry Hill.
That's some acting.
Didn't really turn out well.
Do you know what I respect about you, though? Right? I made a bit of a balls up, right? We recorded, and even though it wasn't technically my fault, it kind of was. But you've not brought it up at all. The fact that we recorded one and there was no sound on it.
No.
You've not. I respect that about you.
It's enough to drive a man to drink. Listen, if we want to get in touch with any questions, go to scottyandmotty@gmail.com. I've been Scotty.
Motty.
Yeah. And hopefully there's sound on this video.